Hello, everyone. We are back with another episode of Life in Law, and today we have a special guest with us, Melanie McCreary. Thank you so much for joining us, Melanie.
Thank you.
And did you want to go ahead and maybe just give a little short intro about yourself for the listeners?
Sure. From a small town, Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania. I'm 38 years old. I'm a registered nurse, a single mom, and I'm currently in the middle of dealing with custody issues for my daughter. I've been in recovery for 13 years from narcotics.
And so, how old is your daughter now?
She's 9,
Okay, and she's your only child?
correct.
And when she was born, you were living in Hollidaysville?
Hollidaysburg. I was in like a neighboring city, Altoona.
And so, how did you first get involved with the courts? Was it something to do with her father, or how did you end up in court to start?
No, actually, her father never, um, gave me any trouble with anything to do with her. Um, this is a situation between my mother, who actually sued me for custody, and um, I'm working my way through that dilemma.
And so, how old was your daughter when your mom filed this case, and which court did she file it in?
My daughter was 8 when this began. Um, Well, she was 7. She turned 8 through the middle of it. And this is court in Hollidaysburg, just civil court, custody court.
Okay, and so this just happened like a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, and before that, you had full custody. There was no issues, no court involvement up
Correct.
until around age 7 or 8 when all of a sudden your mom filed this. And were you shocked to see that she filed this, or were you expecting it?
Yeah, I was very shocked because I had my daughter in 2016, and I mean, from the time she was born until COVID, basically, my daughter had went to daycare, and I never had anybody wanting to help me with childcare or help me babysitting. I was back in school for my RN, and I just did everything by myself with the help of, community means, and friends, and had no involvement with my mother. So, when COVID happened, I changed jobs, and I needed to work more so in the evenings and the weekends where I didn't have daycare availability. And that is how my mother got involved with my daughter's care and into our life. Um,
So sorry, just to clarify. So basically your mom started helping with babysitting, right?
yes, when COVID happened, I got another job where I'm currently at. But I mean, it came, with uh you know, yeah, she had helped me. I was in a tough situation, but I compensated her for that as well. And I hear like you pay $500 a month for daycare, so you can pay me to watch her. And then as I excelled with passing my boards and getting situated in a job as an RN, and I wanted to work just one job and be just primarily taking things back into my own control here with my daughter, and not paying my mom um an extravagant amount of money to watch my daughter as well. But then I got I got slapped with the paperwork that she was suing me for custody of her.
But like, what were the allegations? Because what was she alleging that she said was so bad that it would warrant switching custody to her?
So my mom's biggest um reason that she says is because of my mental health or because she can provide a more stable environment for my daughter.
So at the time, did you have your own place or were you living with your mom or where were you like staying?
I have my own place. I've lived on my own since I was 18.
And so you had your own house, she had her own room. It wasn't like you didn't, it's not like you were homeless or something like that. But
Correct.
out like in terms of mental health, was she claiming that you were having issues that weren't happening before, or like what was she trying to say? Because you had custody for all these years, how could you now all of a sudden have mental health issues and no one said anything, you know?
Correct. It just seems like um it in knowing my relationship with my mother, it just seems like it's a control tactic. Like when I tell you that, I got addicted to drugs when I was 13, and it was a Oxycontin prescription that she would sell, and that my mom moved out of my dad's house when I was young and started selling marijuana, and that became my life as a teenager. It makes sense to me that I am no longer that person that uses drugs, so I feel like there is any and every way she can to control and manipulate me. And it just seems like instead of it being the drugs or the substance today in my current life, it's my daughter.
And so can you sort of speak a little bit more about what you experienced as a teen? I think that you mentioned that you were basically from the age of 13, that was when your mom started selling narcotics, correct? And
Correct.
at what point did you start using it? And was she the one supplying it to you?
Yes, I was 13 as well, the first time I ever smoked marijuana, and then um, I became addicted to Oxycontin as well. And yes, she was the one that supplied it to me.
And so the first time that she gave you like Oxycontin, what happened? Like, was she just like, did she tell you what it was or like, do you remember?
It just became more of like a um, substance that she knew people used to get high, and that she could make money on it. So, um, my life drastically changed with her selling marijuana, and that was one thing. But, this was um, at the time. Uh, this medication was just new on the market, and it just seemed like there was such an epidemic of opiate use. Looking back, nobody really knew how addictive it was, but um, you to sell a prescription and make $7,000 a month, like it was about money to her. You know, there was no moral compass of like this is wrong. Um,
But I just don't understand, like, if it's about the money and making a profit, why would she then want to get you hooked on it?
yeah, I don't think um, there's any. These are questions I wish that I could understand.
So it was just like she gave it to you and
Mm.
you did just took what your mom gave you and you didn't question it. And then next thing you know, you're addicted and it's like you feel like you needed it and then it did it like escalate into like worse things as time went by?
Yeah, correct. I had remember being 16 years old trying to get off of it with maintenance. And so for me in my life, I've been in counseling since I was 16 years old, and I currently still am. But I also, needed to go to drug and alcohol treatment 3 different times, and the last time was the successful one in 2012. So I had to leave uh, Hollidaysburg to go. I, went out of state to treatment to get away. And the biggest thing in recovery that they tell you is to stay away from people, places, and things. And the biggest, you know, factor that always tripped me up was cutting off the relationship with my mother.
And so when's the last time that you spoke to your mother outside of court?
Um, we have to deal with all communication on an app for custody that's court ordered.
And so you just pretty much keep it limited to about your daughter and nothing else?
Yeah, I try to do my best to keep the emotions out of it and focus on the priority for me, which is Amelia.
And so when she filed in court, what year was this again?
It was 2024.
And so after that, you had your first hearing, and what was the outcome?
Um, she she filed to sue me in court. She had me arrested a week after that, whereas I had gone up to her house. She had told me um, in a in-person meeting to come up to her house, and then had called the police on me and said that I was trespassing. So I had gotten arrested um, in her driveway, and it was at that time that while I was in police custody, a worker from CYS had came in and forced me to sign a voluntary safety plan. So that put my daughter with my mother for 60 days. They didn't read me the details of the plan, and then from there it just became, me. That is when I moved into the 50-50 custody agreement, and it's just been a legal fight since with the courts to uh, regain full custody of my daughter.
So now back up for a second too. When you said she forced you to sign the safety plan, how did
Yeah.
she force you? Like, obviously she didn't put a gun to your head. Like, what did she do that made you feel like you're being forced?
So I was in police custody in the township department, then handcuffed, and I had just had a pretty bad arrest. I had two police officers standing behind her, and she had came in and told me that if I did not sign this paper, my daughter was going to foster care, and not in that way so nice. She was swearing at me. She gave me the paper and I just remember asking the police officers to uncuff my hands, and when I flipped the paper over, she told me I didn't have to look at anything. I just needed to sign it. So, knowing now what I didn't know then was that it was a voluntary plan, and they did. I mean, I felt like I was forced into signing it. It was like the option of, when I'm being told that my daughter's going into foster care, if I don't sign her to be with my mom for 60 days, what would anybody do? Because I didn't know what was going to happen to me at that time. Um,
And so at the time, did you feel like there was nobody else other than your mom that would have been a better alternative to foster care? Or was it that they didn't give you any other option?
they didn't give me any other option. So when I say that my daughter has been in daycare, you know, was in daycare, I do have friends. I have um, support in those systems, and there are many other options for me other than my mother. My mother would be my last the last person that I would want to place my daughter with for safety reasons.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad because it's like the foster care people, a lot of them are literally strangers and people that are just in it for a check, because they're getting a monthly check for each kid. And so a lot of times children go into foster care, end up getting sexually abused, physically abused, emotionally. And it's like so common that these people that volunteer to be foster parents, a lot of times all you have to do is just sign your name on a piece of paper. There's no background check. It's easier to be a foster kid than it is a foster parent than it is to get custody of your actual children. And so, if they actually gave people the option to say, hey, do you have any other, like, not just blood family, not just blood related people, but anybody who may be able to foster the child for a temporary amount of time. And if they said to you, yes, you can choose somebody and we'll go to their house and We'll inspect their house and make sure their house is clean and okay. And if it looks fine, we'll let the child stay there. That would open up the door to let people from the daycare and people from the community and like people you know and trust that might not necessarily be blood, because we all know blood's not thicker than water. And a lot of times family is the worst people to us. And so it's like saying, okay, just because this person's related, even though they have history of drug dealing, history of abuse, history of this, that, DV, like we'll just overlook all that because you're the parent, you're the grandparent, you're this, you're that. But somebody else who's like a neighbor or a friend or this can be an excellent choice, but they don't even get offered. So I feel like there's so many things in the system that are designed to fail these children and then get them caught up in these situations where then they just have more services that they're going to need, more services, drug testing, supervised visits, even just keeping the cases open allows them to funnel all this money from the federal government. And like, the fact that you're an RN and, can have a license to work as a nurse, but be considered in some way needing not to have your daughter, it doesn't make any sense.
Correct. I agree with that. I feel like there's a lot of wasted resources. And I think for me, that's 100% why I speak out about it, because I never had the insight to these scenarios before. And now that I've been in it, I understand, and I mean, for me, I had people tell me that I would never obtain a nursing license. And, I've fought for my sanity and for my recovery all of my life. And I've faced obstacles of people telling me that I would never be these things, and it turns out that's not true. There was always just limited support. And I think about my daughter being in the middle of a custody agreement right now. Like, how many parents just give up fights because they feel like they don't have the money or the resources or the courage to speak out about it? And I think, that's what motivates me more than anything.
Yeah. And like, I think it's good that you're sharing your story and telling your perspective and even like what you went through in your own childhood. And I know that there's a lot of people out there like that claim to be advocates, claim to be trying to help other parents and stuff like that. I don't know if you've ever, or if you're familiar with Stand with Meg, but if
Yeah.
you see her videos and, at first I tried to support her, but then people were showing that she basically admitted to purchasing and doing HHC and THC and, smoking and doing whatever else, to consume it with her like 14-year-old, 15-year-old. And it's like, then, you hear from other family members that now the same child who was at the time 14, when they're starting to do this kind of stuff, smoking with their mom, now they're dealing with like addiction issues. And so as somebody who went through that yourself, like what advice would you give to, if parents might say like, oh, well, my teenager begged me to buy it for them, or, we do it together and it makes us feel good and we bond. And like, what do you have to say about that as somebody who is basically fed that stuff at the same type of age by your mom?
Yeah, it draws a it's a hard no for me. Um, and that's the thing is, if that's what children grow up around and that's what is acceptable, then they will grow up believing that that was acceptable. I grew up believing that it was acceptable to smoke pot with my mom, that it was acceptable to sell drugs, and you know, it it wasn't until I ventured out into treatment and other areas, and continued with therapy, that I realized that this is actually really not okay and it's not acceptable. And I do believe, if I have to see a positive in any thing that I'm going through, like, this opened the door for me to have honest conversations with my daughter about addiction, because she didn't see me in my addiction, so she wouldn't know, any different. But this opened a big window for me, to educate her and educate others on why it's not okay.
Yeah. And like, I feel like these days too, like especially with like marijuana and stuff, like with a lot of states having medical and or recreational, having it be legal. Like I know when I was a teenager in high school, it was like fully illegal. And like even if you had like a crumb, you go to jail, you get arrested. Then they like slowly like they decriminalized it. Then they legalized medical for PTSD, things like that, cancer. And then they a few years ago legalized recreational, and like a lot of other states around too, most of them are like that now. And so I feel like a lot of these kids, they think like, okay, it's not a big deal, especially like if their friends are doing it, if it's so easy to get it and stuff like that. But I feel like the issue is like when you start to like experiment with things that are more like hardcore drugs, and like if somebody's telling you, okay, here, smoke pot, this is normal, this is okay, oh, here, have this pill, this is normal, this is okay, it's like every child is gonna automatically trust like the adults around them. And so it's one thing if they're like getting introduced to things by peer pressure or their friends or at a party or at this and that, which then it's like the parent should be the one who it's like they can come to them and say, okay, you know, I was at a party and people were doing pot and doing this, and not be scared to talk to you about it, versus like you come home and your parents the one giving you pot, you know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
you have that role, and a lot of people don't understand that you have to be their parent, not their friend. And it's like that means that you got to be the bad guy sometimes, that they don't like, they're gonna be mad at you, they're gonna say they hate you, they're gonna not talk to you, but it's they don't understand. Years later they're gonna thank you, because I've seen a lot of friends die over the years from overdoses and other things related to, you know, that, and even with drinking, like, you know. And so it's definitely you know, an issue, especially because so many people are growing up having like trauma, and a lot of people can't handle it, so it's so easy to like, okay, I'm going to cope by doing this or doing that, but then it's like you're just putting a band-aid on it, you're not actually feeling the pain and processing it and like learning from it and stuff like that. And so you mentioned you've been in recovery for 13 years. During that time, have you had times when there was like relapses and things like that, or have you been pretty much clean the whole time, or what's that experience been like?
Um, oh, it's always a wild experience. I mean, for me, alcohol is something that, you can legally buy. Um, Recovery for me is the absence of anything mind or mood altering. So, my drug of choice was opiates, and I have not touched anything like that um, in 13 years. I had a little bit of a, tough time with uh, antidepressants and things like that. But I take a lot of pride in saying that, I don't rely on any medication today. I do believe that um, addiction for anybody is just how you self-medicate. There were things that I had to work through emotionally, feelings that I didn't want to feel. But it's also being able to express and having a safe environment to talk about those feelings, you know. And therapy for me was probably is the reason I believe that been able to express all of that and get to a point where I don't need to self-medicate. I grew up thinking that the way that I felt was not normal, or yeah, sure, I had some depression situationally. Like I grew up in chaos, I have also experienced sexual abuse in my life. So, oftentimes when you are the one who speaks out and you want help about it, then you have all of these people telling you, like, no, that didn't happen, and you don't have a right to feel that way. Like, I don't know. Recovery to me is more about healing the root of it and not just masking it with a substance, And I know there are people that need medication, to assist them with the transition of not using drugs, and that's fine. I support that as well. That's just not my journey.
Yeah, and I think it's important that like everybody does what's best for them. And it's like you said, like some people's drug of choice is alcohol or, cocaine or benzos, whatever it is. Like it's not everybody. Somebody who has such a problem with one drug is not even going to be interested in another drug. And so it's like everybody has to do what's best for them, especially too with eliminating people and places and things that are toxic out of your life. That, okay, these people are still doing drugs, they're still getting high, I'm not going to hang out with them, because that's just going to trigger you to do it. And so, you mentioned being from a really, really small town. And as somebody who's also from a small town and a small state, I feel like it can be very hard because one, everyone knows everybody, everyone's in everybody's business. And it's like, you'll run into the same old people. It's like they don't leave. It's like they stay there for generations. And it's like, it's like as soon as you get away from it, you realize like, wow, there's a huge world out here. And it's like, you can breathe a little bit. But did you experience that, like the more you spent time there, that it was worse for you?
Yeah, I think, I was dismissed from school, from high school here, um, because I had, let the guidance counselor know that I was struggling with addiction. So my senior year of high school, I was homeschooled. And I mean, I did graduate with my class and go back to school, but when I think about growing up in a small town and just all of the people that you think 20 years ago would have been supportive, and then what I'm dealing with now, it's like, why are we closing our eyes to this? I don't ever want my daughter to feel like there is somebody not listening to her when she comes with valid concerns, or anybody's children for that matter. Um, but of course there's obstacles. And for somebody with PTSD as well, like, every corner that I turn, like there's tons of good memories here, but there's tons of bad memories here too. And so being, tied up in custody right now, like I'm not leaving my daughter here, but I know there is so much more than Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania for me, and I would love the opportunity to leave here. I stay here because I fight for my daughter.
Yeah, which makes it harder because it's like you're kind of trapped there now. And then if you leave, then it's like she's like being held hostage. And kind of like my situation in a way, my children are in the state and I'm not anymore. So it's like they're using it as a leverage hostage situation. Say, come back here if you want to see your kids, but then we're going to put you in jail and make it so you won't see your kids and you lose it all. So it's like what they're doing is insane. And whether it's a family member or the father or whoever doing it, I've heard same thing where people said it was like the grandfather and different, people doing that. And so I think it's really hard, especially like growing up with abuse and like toxic family and like being exposed to all these things from such a young age. And then it's like, I think, even watching your parents be in like DV situations and watching that and growing up and thinking it's normal, and then getting older and, having kids or trying to get in relationships and things like that. But it's like, it's, at least I find it really hard to like be able to trust somebody enough to like let your guard down and like allow yourself to like be loved. It's like I feel like if somebody's like doing all the right things and like showing me that they care, it's like my instinct is to just like push them away. And then it's like you push them away and then it's like, wait, why'd they leave? You know what I mean? And it's like, no, that's not what I wanted. But then it's like too late. You know what I mean? Especially like if you have all this trauma. And, I also dealt with like sexual abuse as a child. And, it was like I was abandoned by my family after I tried to go to the police about it. I had to live on my own since I was 14. I did everything to build myself up to be able to have a good life for my kids, take care of them by myself, and lost my children for reporting sexual abuse. And I was accused of lying and lost custody. And so it's like to go from having custody to not because you tried to protect your child is like insane. And like in your situation too, it's like, you know, you were doing it all by yourself. You beat the odds by becoming an RN, which is like admirable. It's not easy. You said you went from being a CNA to an LPN to an RN. Some people will just get a BSN. Like the fact that you did it through working your way up and keep working hard shows like dedication. And the fact that, you know, your mom has this history and it seems to be overlooked makes me think that maybe there's some kind of corruption happening in the court.
I agree. I've had the same job for 5 years. So I mean, you know, the same employer for 5 years. And when I'm, you know, able to go to work and be a productive member of society in that situation, but I'm not able to be a mom, it's like, what is going on? And you see it like with the current events happening today. I mean, you know, why does it take so much for people to believe uh anybody? Because it doesn't just happen to women and children, it happens to men as well. But why do you have to continually speak up and relive this trauma and go through hell before somebody believes you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why it's like, you know, it's just sad that the way that society thinks is to automatically not believe the victim. And it's like, they'll believe if somebody's like, oh no, she's lying, they'll believe them without any proof. But if it's like, oh no, I'm telling the truth, here's video evidence of it happening, they'll be like, oh no, that's AI. Oh no, that's edited. Oh, that's fake. Like they'll find any excuse to like not believe them. And even if they do believe it, then they'll say, well, she deserved it, or she was crazy, or this and that. And it's just like, you know, and it happens to men too, but it's like, I feel like a lot of times, like, you know, girls and women deal with a lot more stuff because especially like men are a lot of times like stronger than us and like more powerful than us and things like that. And so it's definitely a lot. And so do you have concerns about your mom now with drugs?
Um, yes, I do, because she is, you know, well, she is not walking, driving, so there's drugs and there's safety concerns as well. But why is it acceptable just because something is prescribed? Like if you know somebody has a pattern of abusing or misusing or selling medication, like why is it continually be acceptable? And I mean, that puts you in a non-alert mindset. And so when I have concerns about my daughter being in that environment, like how's your reaction time in the case of an emergency? Like, you know, you can't even walk or take her to um the emergency room should anything happen. Like, you know, if she falls and gets hurt, like you can't even pick her up. And so there, it's more than just the drugs for me, it's the whole scenario. But you know, I do believe um it's acceptable in society if you're prescribed something. You know, you touched on it earlier, like with the marijuana and stuff like that. To each their own, but that's not the way that I live, and that's not what I want my daughter to be around and exposed to. And I do believe like I should have the choice to, you know, if I want my daughter to be watched with somebody that is on medication, then okay, sure. You know, when you have children in facilities, like they do drug tests at daycares, they do drug tests at schools. You know what I mean? There is more screening to prevent um, people that aren't in their right mind to be around children. And I know that things, yes, get slipped through the crack, but um, this has just been my ongoing concern since custody started, and it just seemed like it was almost laughable to me. Like I had my first attorney tell me that they don't drug test in my county for custody. If I was in a different county, that I would get that because I had requested it from the beginning. But then he also told me, you know, it's going to take something bad to happen to your daughter before you ever get full custody of her. And I'm like, why is this the way that things work? Like, why do we have to be reactive? Why can't we be proactive about it?
And the lawyer said that to you?
Yeah, he's no longer my attorney. But yeah, that was what I got. That was what I got.
You that they're in on it and that like he's like this is just the way it is, and it's like I just feel like you can't trust these lawyers anymore because they're all about money. They just only want to make as much money as they can, and they see like your desperation. It's like if somebody comes up to you and is like, I'm so desperate, I'll do anything you say if you just help me. It's like that they look at that person like, okay, this person says they're so desperate, okay, cha-ching, like that's all I had to hear. And it's like, then they just like say, okay, yeah, it's going to be like 30 grand up front versus if you weren't desperate, would you just hand somebody 30 grand? Like, and so, you currently are represented by someone.
Yeah, yeah. I'm happy with that so far. I mean, yeah, I'm happy with with things, but to some extent it is also like, you know, I'm tired of it being about money. I'm tired of it being a continual influx of, you know, uh, for example, my last hearing, 2 weeks of pay just to go to court for a day. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. And like, what was accomplished at that hearing?
Yeah, we just moved into another agreement and I revisit it in 6 months. But like at the end of the day, I want my daughter back. Like I don't want to shell money out into attorneys. Like I want to save money for her education, for her future. And it just seems like I'm on the verge of getting a second job. Like why do I have to work so hard to to pay for this fight?
And so what's the most recent agreement?
I have a little bit more than 50-50 custody of my daughter, and then I revisit this um in June probably, to whereas I hope to get an evidentiary hearing and,
You have to wait
resume full
June.
custody. Yeah, I have to wait 6 months. And so, the concerns with that are the kids are going to be out of school for the summer. Like I don't want to move into things, you know, with not having a plan in place. Like there's a lot of concern when my daughter's not with me as to who she's with, what's going on, and just, I'm I face a lot of frustrations with the lack of communication.
And so at this point, the visits or the time that you have with your daughter is unsupervised, correct?
Yes.
And so at first, were you on supervised visits at one point or no?
When I had been forced into that safety plan for 60 days, I did have to go do supervised visits for 2 hours a week was all that I got. And then we moved our way up there. But I mean, there were a lot of concerns with the children's services in my area as well, because as I, documented and pointed out things that were not okay with how they were doing things, as I got out of that 60-day agreement, like I did file a report. I did report them to the state, and then they had, been on a uh, provisional license, I guess, whenever they started, getting involved in my life. Then they were ran by the state for a little while. And although I'm not involved with children's services anymore in my area, there were just a lot of things that, like, hey, I'm screaming and telling you, like, what is going on and why these things are wrong, and you're just dismissing me as a parent. I think that happens too much.
And so now within the next 6 months, there's really nothing you can do other than just keep with the existing agreement and wait.
Just wait it out, yeah.
And so after 6 months, when they say revisit, is it your lawyer's intent to try to ask for you to just get full custody and have it be finalized?
Yes.
And so, but your mom will not agree to that?
No.
So is it going to move to like a trial or,
Yeah.
and so this next thing happening in June, that's not even the trial. That's just another hearing, like for a status update.
I hope it will be a trial because I'm tired of dealing with this.
But
And my daughter's growing up. she's growing up. She needs the support of being able to just express herself. Yes, I have her in therapy and counseling, but yeah, I want her to be a 9-year-old little girl.
Yeah. No, I understand. And it's like, it just doesn't make any sense how, if you're able to have more than 50-50, why not just give you full custody?
Hmm.
Are they saying that there's things that they want you to do before you can get custody back?
There's really nothing that they're asking me to do. I mean, I had complied with, the agencies and the people coming in, and worked my way up through that. My first visitors in my home were women from an agency like Family Intervention, and they just came in here once a week and got paid to sit and talk with me for an hour. Like there were never any recommendations. And I have to reiterate that, like me putting my daughter in counseling and me continuing counseling wasn't anything that I was court ordered to do. Um, I have complied with everything that they have asked me to do in the courts, and a lot of the structure and plans that I had in place were, preventative on my own account.
And so which county is, what did you say? Hollidaysburg. What county is that in?
Blair County.
Okay. And so what would you, want to say to other parents who may be listening from Blair County or surrounding counties that might be in a similar situation? Is there warnings you want to give or anything you want to give people that might find themselves in a custody battle and that seems to just keep getting dragged on with no end in sight?
Yeah, you're not alone in this fight. I mean, I felt like it was really embarrassing for me to speak up about it publicly and like on social media, but as I did, the right people gravitated towards me to tell me their experience with um how things worked out, or other agencies. And I think coming together collectively um, gave me, you know, more basis of, wow, I'm really not crazy, because in the beginning I felt like I was crazy. I felt like, why is this happening? What is going on? Like this can't be reality. And I mean, the biggest thing for me is just to, the documentation side of it. So when I tell you I'm a nurse, like I document everything at work. Like, why wouldn't I document things for my daughter's well-being too? And we lose sight of that a lot of times with in-person conversation. And like, no, I realized the importance of putting a memo in an email and sending it and CCing it to 5 people. I would have never had um the proof or the confirmation of what really happened if I didn't take the time to do that. And that stuff sounds stupid. It's like, oh, you know, like, no, it's important because you pay somebody to represent you, and they don't always do their job to the best of their ability.
Definitely. And like you said, like even like sending a little email, like, when I had a lawyer at the beginning, he said like, oh yeah, sending yourself an email is like a memorializing something. And it's true because there's this timestamp, I'll send emails to myself like every time I want to remember something. And then I have like 50 million emails to look at and I'm just like, oh, and then I'll print them out and I'm like, yeah, I'll like go through my papers that I printed. And then it's like the stack is like this big and I just never get them all. But those are things that I need to work on and try to like do better because it's like sometimes you document and it's like too much and then it's like overwhelming. So I think
Yeah.
the more like organized that somebody can be, like organized, detailed, and like getting your stuff like, in a spreadsheet or something. So it's not just like all dumped everywhere. But yeah, I definitely think that those are skills that like will help you in the long run. And it seems like, you have everything, put together. It's, you have a good job, you have your own place. Like there's nothing that they can say. And it's just clearly like, the lawyers are getting money from this, the courts, like, does your mom have a lawyer?
Yes.
Yeah. So they're getting money. So it's just like, and it's just like the fact that, you have this thing coming up in June, they're saying we'll revisit, but they're not clearly saying that this is going to be a trial. So if it's not going to be a trial, why are they wasting time and money on a revisit date when you already know that your mom is not willing to negotiate? So if she's not willing to negotiate, it should be, let's schedule the trial. It should be, let's pick our witnesses, let's get our evidence and exhibits ready, and not, oh no, we'll keep coming back, we'll see if there's agreements. Like, there's not going to be agreements. And if it is, it's going to cost $5,000 for the day in court
Correct.
per
Yeah.
side to get that agreement done when you can just go to the trial. So now are these hearings being live streamed for people, for the public?
No, they don't do anything like that in my area. Like, they don't do anything over Zoom or anything live streamed. It's like very private and personal.
Probably because they don't want witnesses.
Yeah. I mean, I know that the day that I have, if I have a trial, like, it will be open for people to come in and observe, and sit and watch as well, but they don't live stream anything like that.
And have you ever had like court watchers come to any of the hearings?
At our last hearing, it was just, well, we were supposed to have a hearing, but I mean, attorneys just pulled us in privately. So I had people out in the lobby waiting for me for like 3-4 hours, but they weren't welcome to come into, any mediations that we were having.
So these weren't like on the record. It was just like a mediation in like a private room.
In the courtroom in front of the judge, yeah.
Oh, it was. So if it was in front of the judge, why are they not letting people watch?
This was our signing of our last custody agreement.
Wow.
Yeah. The judge, yeah.
Flag, like, these are supposed to be public proceedings, like open to the public.
Yeah. I backed into 100 different corners. And although I don't want to like speak, poorly about specific people, it just seems like, I've never been given the opportunity to sit down and talk to anybody and tell them my story, which is why I appreciate you so much. For what you do, because it just seems like there are people that make decisions that don't even know what's really going on. You're just looking at something on paper and stamping it and saying, okay, like, my daughter is not a number to me, but she's a number to them, and she's a paycheck to these people. And it's so disheartening.
Yeah. And even when they do that like temporary 60-day thing, they're making big money from that. And your mom probably got paid too. And so, that's what I mean. Then they just keep it going. And whatever therapy services and things that she's in, which she wouldn't need all that if she wasn't traumatized by what they did. See,
Oh,
so
yeah.
making machine for them. And then it's like they want people to be like so traumatized that then they become big pharma patients living off antidepressants your whole life and all that because you're so traumatized you can't function. And so that's the American money making pipeline in a nutshell.
Yeah. Oh.
But I mean, I'm sure like, and I think too, like, it's just a matter of recognizing that like what's happening is like happening on a national scale, and it's like some counties and states are worse than others. But I just think that like, when it happens to you, you feel like scared, you feel ashamed, you don't want to talk about it, you're embarrassed. Even if you did nothing wrong, it's like nobody's going to believe you. People will automatically think, oh, you're not telling the whole story or you're lying or whatever. And then especially if the other side like tries to like slander you or say things that aren't true and get inside people's head. So I think like being able to just speak up and say what's happening and say like, look, if this can happen to me, it could happen to you, it could happen to anybody. And, I think that it's courageous of you to speak up. And what made you want to finally share your story now?
Oh, I have so much that I want to let go moving into the next year because, this has been like a whirlwind of emotions for me. But, I continue to push forward with my daughter. She is excelling in school. She's doing really well. And I think, when I look at what is going to come of my experience, like, I just want people to open their eyes and do better. I never thought that I would ever be in these situations or circumstances. I lost a lot of friends and a lot of support through this, but I gained the right kind of people and the right kind of support. And I just feel like, um, everybody thinks that this is something that will never happen to them until it does. And I'm kind of discouraged by, some of the people in my area and community that I really thought would be more supportive that aren't, and it's just a matter of, at the end of the day, I have like my faith, and I know that God brings the right people into my life at the right time. But, we talk about like the negative ways that you can cope with things. Thank God I didn't go back out into addiction. Like, thank God I didn't like get, depressed or become suicidal or anything like that. But a lot of people do. A lot of people do just give up the fight, throw in the towel, start using, and never get a chance to tell their story. And I too have had so many friends that have died of, overdoses and suicides and things like that. Like, they never got a chance to tell their story. I'm never going to get a check or an apology in the mail. There's never going to be like some "we're sorry," for the inconvenience. But at the end of the day, it's like, just do better and don't do to other people what you're doing to me.
Yeah. And, it's good that you're speaking up, because it's setting the record straight and being able to say things from your point of view, because only you can tell your story, no matter what anybody else says. And only you know what you went through. And, there's times when nobody else witnessed it except God. So, only God sees your journey. So, just keep doing what you're doing. And so you were with your daughter on Christmas?
Yes, I was. I had her Christmas Eve, and then overnight into Christmas Day. Then my dad's sort of like a middleman in this, even though he doesn't want to be. Um, he had taken my daughter up then to spend time with my mother.
That's
We had
good.
a nice. I mean, there were no like extravagant gifts. Like, I'm like, yeah, mom's broke, but I mean, she appreciated the time more than anything else.
Yeah. That's all they really want, is just like quality time. And, it's like the thought that counts really with the gifts. I'm sure whatever you picked was stuff that was thoughtful. So I'm sure she
Yeah,
appreciated it.
yeah,
And, so now she's off, and then she goes back to school, and next week?
yeah, yep.
So you guys get to enjoy the rest of the break, or is she going to go back to your mom's for a while?
We're still back and forth.
Okay.
We still split the time, so I have to deal with that, but it's okay. It's a little bit harder now with Christmas break and holiday break, because then we don't have the other like daycare and like after school programs involved, which are, you know, a good buffer and provide good structure for my daughter.
Yeah. That's good. And like just having as much like normalcy as possible, and like routine, like they say, like routines can help, like not with falling into depression and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
even for you, just like, going to work every day, going home, doing cookie dinner, like those routines keep you sane, you know?
Yeah, structure is important, and I think too, like, court doesn't realize that. Like, you send a kid on your days that you decide, you know what I mean? Like, where does a kid get normalcy? Like, where does a kid get structure? Because I know the environment that I raised my daughter in and the environment that my mother has my daughter in are two totally different structures. You go from having rules to follow to doing whatever you want in another environment. It's confusing.
Yeah. Then they come home to you, and then all of a sudden they don't want to listen because there's no rules at the other place. And that's another tactic that they use to get the kid to like side with them or favor them or whatever. Cause it's like, oh, I get to eat candy and watch
Yeah.
be and do what I want, but at mom's house, I have to eat healthy and only have an hour of screen time. Therefore, I want to be at grandma's. Like that's the kind of things like manipulation that they're doing.
Correct.
But
Yes.
it seems like you and your daughter have like a strong bond though, even though all this happened. It seems like they haven't really messed up your bond yet, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely gotten stronger through this. She's old enough to see, she's old enough to see and know what is going on. My camera
Yeah.
turned first.
Oh no. Okay. I don't know what happened. So now, would you encourage to have court watchers come to your next court date coming up in June if anybody is in the area and wants to support, or maybe another mom or dad who might have a similar situation? Would you welcome people to come?
I don't know if they would open that up to the public, but I mean, I encourage anybody to come. Uh, I would be happy to have support for one, but for other people to see uh what goes on um in those scenarios. I think it's good education. Some of the things that I felt like the court should have focused on, or should have been priority, are not, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what happened to your camera there. It's still off, but
Yeah,
that's okay. Um, well, oh, there you go. So,
my daughter's starting to message me.
oh, okay. Well, I think, we can pretty much wrap up. I think unless there was anything else you wanted to add, but I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to, come on the show and share your story with us and being so open. And, I thank you for your time. And hopefully if anything that we talked about resonates with other parents, if they want to reach out to you, can people find you on Facebook?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Facebook. You can always send a message. I'm always here to listen. I don't really give anybody advice, more as just, tell people my experience. And, from that aspect, it's more of, I just want people to know that they're not alone. And I appreciate that you take the time and you invest time into, what we're trying to do here, raising awareness for other people.
Well, I'm happy that, you appreciate it and thank you so much. And I appreciate you and everybody who comes on to tell their story because I know it's not easy. And the more you talk about it, the easier it becomes. And the more you can inspire other people who might be listening or watching and thinking, oh my God, I didn't know that I'm not the only one. So,
Yeah.
but I wish you and your daughter an amazing new year going into 2026. And I hope you guys have all the results you want at the next hearing, if not sooner, and get all this put behind you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you again for coming on.
All right.